What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to another MD Fish Tanks build video. Today we're going to be doing a junglescape. Now junglescapes, despite being the easiest type of aquascape, are my absolute favourite. They're just like the down-to-earth version of an aquarium in my opinion. Easy for beginners, but once you'll get grown in and thick, they just look so good. And also they're just so much fun to watch evolve. So today we're going to be doing one in a 60 centimetre. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go. So this size aquarium is like the absolute perfect size. It's not so small that it's nano, but it's not so big that it's going to cost an absolute fortune to kit out, especially when there's so many different budget lights you can get. Now I've tried pretty much all of them, and there's probably two now that I would only pick. This is one of them. The other one's on my sparkling Grammy tank that I showed in a few videos back. I'll show you a clip. But yeah, you can pick them up for cheap. I mean, this is the Opti White version. You can get a non-Opti White, you know, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't make massive difference, does it? Like, it's not a make or break thing, having to have Opti White glass. That just means there's less, they take out iron from the glass production process. It gives it a more clearer look, but you're filling it with green anyway, so if there's a green tint to the glass, it's not really gonna matter, is it? Saying that, I am quite snobby about it, and I only ever buy the low iron ones now. There's not a massive amount of costs in it for this sort of size tank, to be honest, so you might as well just go for it. Anyway, first thing, as usual, nutrients in first. This layer here is really good as a base level because it's not fine, it's not coarse, you know, there's coarse elements, there's fine elements, stops everything compacting down. I've not gone too deep just yet. Next up, I want to put some nutrients on top of this because there's barely any. There's a few dots of aqua soil in there, but it's nowhere near enough. So I'm going to lay down some API root tabs. Yeah, these ones here. So look, oh, I just dropped one. So they're basically little tablets. Now, you can keep them whole like that if you want to sort of put them into the aquascape that's already full. For instance, this is my discus tank, and recently I noticed that it wasn't popping like it should be. The plants weren't growing very far. Hello guys. No, we're not feeding yet. So I'll keep those tablets whole, get some pincers and just push it into the substrate. It's really good for that. But when you've got a new setup like this, I find it's better just to take these tablets, crush them up, and you can just sprinkle it evenly over the whole surface then. Okay, brilliant. Next up, let's get some aqua soil in there. So yeah, that's reused aqua soil. I always try and reuse whenever I can. That's why you can see other little bits like sand and little bits of gravel and that mixed in with it. It's a full-on job lot from way previously, but it'll do the job just as good. So there we go, we've got quite a lot going on now. We've got good nutrients. It's time to cap this over the top because I don't really like the idea of all of this spilling into the foreground. It's so annoying. So I cap it all over with the decorative sand, and then we can start putting our hardscape in. Oh yeah, look at that, look how neat that is. So you'll notice I've pulled the sand right away from the foreground because I want the main decorative sand, not this stuff, the stuff we want to see a lot of, to come right to the front. If we come around to the side here, look, it's quite interesting. Let me just turn this up. There we go, so we can actually see all the different layers now. So that's obviously the first one, aqua soil, then we've got the capping on the top. Now some of the aqua soil will work its way through, it always does, and it'll probably come into the foreground, but as long as it's not too much, we can take care of it. Right, now it's time for hardscape. Now with a jungle aquarium, the hardscape isn't the main focal points. It's all about those plants. It's going to grow crazy in there. So we're only really using the hardscape to create structure in certain areas if you want. Places to mount plants on, like epiphyte plants, Java ferns, bucephalandra, all that kind of thing. So I'm going to go for like a big section there and a smaller section there with a big gap at the back for tons of planted. I'm going to keep it quite small, so it's going to look a bit weird to start with, but when we start planting and filling up and all that, it's going to look great. Hopefully. Incredibly presumptuous of me that it's going to look great, but fingers crossed. I've done this enough times now that I can sort of bring to life what I'm picturing in my head. So for hardscape, I've got a ton of options, as you can see here, but all of this stuff is big stuff. I don't want to make that much of an impact with this one. Like I said, I just want it for structure. I've got plans for some of these later on, but again, they're not for this one. But this is my only store of hardscape. Okay, so I've also got all of this lot as well. So what I want to use is a load of these smaller sort of sticks you can see here. So they, you know, they're only tiny little pieces of like manzanita wood, but you can link them all together and create good shapes with them. Some of them already are good shape. Get off. Some of them already are good shapes. Like that one will be perfect actually. I'm going to take that one for sure. And then I'll just pick some more, and I'm not even sure on stones yet, but I think I'm going to go for a rounded stone. Just a few, just to hold everything in place. Yeah, some of these will look cool. I like these. I've got quite a few. But yeah, that could work good. Absolutely nothing complicated about this at all. I've left space either side for planting and to allow cleaning, because you need to leave that gap. You don't have to, but if you're touching the glass, it's such a pain when it comes to doing all the maintenance. But look, see, nice space either side. Now in terms of space at the back, well, this one's kind of there, but that's fine. There's loads of room back there for planting into. The thing is, these tanks aren't that deep, so you've got to sort of find a happy medium, but you don't want like it right up against the front of the glass either, because that would just spoil everything. I think we've got it about right. Okay, this all needs to be stuck down. It's going to float otherwise. This stuff has been underwater before. That's why it's not like bright orange and it's got that nice sort of brown coloration to it, which happens to all wood after a few weeks. This will still get that weird white fungus on. All wood always does. But the amanos, whatever fish we put in there, will get it off in no time. For now though, you know the drill. Cyanoacrylate super glue gel, stick it to stuff. So that's going to sort of lock the glue temporarily. It won't be properly hard for a good, I don't know, 12 to 24 hours, something like that. But in the meantime, I can start getting some of the decorative sand in now that I want to put around all these areas. Pull some of it into the foreground as well, just to make it look like it's all blending in nicely. And then we can get on with our planting. I'm so excited for that. So I know that is looking not like fantastic at the moment. It looks a bit of a mess, but trust me, when we got all those plants in there, it's going to look absolutely gorgeous. Again, this is just the framework for the plants. So I'm going to start with the foreground for the plants, and for that we need stuff that stays short. Fortunately, I've got quite a few options, follow me. So this is my other studio. Down there I've got a load of plants in there that are actually really good and ready to go. Down in this section here, I've got an absolute ton of new plants. They've not been underwater yet, but you can see there's a sort of inch of water, and then they've got like sort of greenhouse conditions, a light on the top. We've got a lot of Glossostigma there. I might be using a few of those. Behind it, Liliopsis brasiliensis, definitely going to be using that. We've got all sorts of crypts. We've got Cryptocorini parva here. This is a really sort of short one. Looks so good for junglescapes. All crypts, to be fair, look great for junglescapes. So we're probably going to use all of them. But behind us, so this is my Amazon aquarium here, and underneath it is a little plant storage tank, and in there we've got some S. repens, this one is here. Now it's looking a bit worse for wear because the floating plants have been blocking the light. It needs a certain level of light. But the top parts are looking really good, so it will bounce back. I'm going to use a few of those. I'm going to use some of this Pogostemon erectus as well. Oh, there's so many options. I'm just going to start with the Crypt parva, and then we'll go from there. I mean, just a little bit of green and already it's looking so good, isn't it? Right, let's keep going. I want to put some Glossostigma now, more in the foreground. That will actually carpet. It'll even try and stretch into this narrow little bit here. Now obviously you can't plant into that, but the plant can actually grow its way forwards given enough time, nutrients, lighting, etc. So yeah, I'm going to go with that. It's going to look a bit sparse to start with, but I'll do it sort of like in a way that looks natural, do you know what I mean? Eventually it should grow everywhere. Oh yes, that's looking sweet. Okay, next up, Pogostemon erectus in that corner section. I just feel like the greenness of it is really going to sort of close in those gaps and keep the focus in the middle is what I'm sort of trying to get at. Okay, looking good. We've got a ton of detail in there so far, and the good thing is none of these plants are that fast growing. The erectus, it can be fast growing in sort of like lower light. When I say fast, I mean it just grows tall really quickly, but with a half decent light it stays kind of small and compact, which means it doesn't have to be trimmed like every 3 days or something. Now remember, we're not using CO2 either in this tank or any of my tanks, to be honest, so we should get steady growth. Now next up, I want to get some focal points on these two sort of islands, and for that we're going to be obviously using the Java Fern. You can't go wrong with it. It's like the ultimate jungle plant. It instantly gives that jungle effect. There we go, guys, looking so good. Now, as I've said before, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. All this stuff's been done before. I just really enjoy doing it. Hopefully you guys enjoy coming along for the ride with me as well. But a little tip about Java Ferns that I've noticed, you can't speed it up too much. As in, you can't just buy like 50 of these bunches and squeeze them all together and cram them in to get that bushy effect. That tends to lead to like the inner parts getting all rotten and whatever. You kind of have to leave it in small amounts like this and let it grow in to do its thing, and then new shoots will come off and go where they want to go, and it gets that really nice sort of rosette-y bunched sort of look. So a little tip there, yeah, don't go too heavy on the Java Fern in one area. Let it do its thing. Got to take your time with it, I'm afraid. Right, next up is mid-ground to background, and that is going to be more crypts, but these are little ones obviously. We need bigger ones. Wow, okay, so far we are looking dense. We're looking good. We've got all the mid-ground plants, we've got the foreground plants. It looks a bit weird at the moment because it's also fresh in, there's no water. But once we get that water in and then the sort of looping over plants, what I'm talking about is the high stem plants. I like to do that with the water filled up. I just find I can plant better and see what's going on. So let's do that, just fill it up. And it also means I don't have to keep spraying this down. I mean, look at that. It's just stunning, isn't it? It's just something about green, white, and that. It just looks so good together. So before we do the background plants, I want to put the filter in to get the water moving, you know, and also that's going to help where we put all of our plants, because we don't want them just getting sort of pushed around everywhere. Especially background plants, they tend, well, stems anyway, they don't like a lot of flow across them. They just sort of twist up and go horrible. So let's get that on, we can see where to put stuff. Right, there we go, we're running smooth. The filter's got like a little surface skimmer on it. It's not great, but it does work, you know. If you just got a little bit of biofilm, it will take it off, so I'm not complaining. It's an incredibly cheap filter, it does the job really well. I'll leave a link for you guys if you're interested. I always like to give you options for budget equipment. Obviously this type of stuff is never going to be as good as the high-end stuff, the light included and the filter, but it will do a good job and you'll enjoy it, and it could be something that leads you on to buy more expensive stuff in you know, future when you do a different setup, whatever. And it might not, you might just think these are perfect for what I want, just like me. I don't like going high-end because this is what I like creating and it does a really good job. So the good thing is the filter is actually sending the water forwards, which means that I don't have to worry about the background plants getting smashed everywhere, so we can just crack straight on. Sometimes I have done a little bit of plastic that comes outwards to sort of bring the water upwards, but I don't think I need to on this one, not yet anyway. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't think I do though, it looks like it's going pretty good. Right, background plants, they can go in now. So through the magic of editing, it's actually been a couple of days now since I set the tank up. Now I've just done a water test and the nitrates are coming out about 20 ppm. So some tanks you want 0, I think reef tanks do that, and some other tanks. Anyway, for planted tanks, especially this one, and one heavily densely planted like this, you do want some nitrates. You need to, otherwise the plants will massively suffer. I've learned that myself recently, you see. Now whether you get those nitrates up from dosing or with, like, what I've done here is probably the root tabs, they're all sort of leaching their way through into the water column, you know, everywhere they need to be. So 20 is perfect. Now what you want to do is keep testing regularly in a new setup, because if I see this little vial here go red, big water change straight away. So I'll test every day now, to be honest, just to make sure. And it might even be worth today just doing a little water change rather than like big ones, because it's getting along really well, this tank. I'm really impressed with it so far. Let's have a little closer look. So the water went slightly hazy on day 2. We're now day 3 and it's, you know, super clear again, looking great. Plants are all standing upright, which is good. It means the lighting is of the right level. Plants in the background, so the crypts are just curving over nicely as well, everything's standing up. Nothing's uprooted, so the glossostigma's staying great. We have got this weird sort of oranginess in the foreground. Now I'm guessing that's iron from the root tabs, just sort of making its way through, because obviously we've got the hang on the back filter putting water downwards into this sort of area, and I suspect it's sort of just pushing it across and just filtering all its way through the sand and gravels that we've got, which is absolutely fine. It's not an issue. I mean, as long as everything stays looking good, I'm happy. And I tell you one thing that I've noticed more and more that I really do like is this pebble here and this one here just coming into the foreground a little bit, because when I did it I thought, are you taking up planting space? But I was wrong. It really does add a jungly vibe, you know. There are rocks in the jungle. I love how this is looking, but I think we're ready to put some fish in. Now remember, it's a new setup, so I'm going to be needing to add beneficial bacteria as we add the fish, and really keeping an eye on those water parameters within the first week at least. I will do for 2 weeks, to be honest. We're going to be doing a fish-in cycle, something I always do. Some people aren't a fan of it, some people don't see an issue with it. I don't, not with the modern sort of beneficial bacteria and all those kind of things, and modern methods as well. To do a fish-in cycle, in my opinion, you need a heavily planted tank, be willing to do lots of water changes, and have beneficial bacteria on hand for at least 2 weeks or so to keep topping it up. But anyway, now's the time to add our awesome fish.